Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because today I'm going to give you guys a spoiler review for the newest MCU Disney Plus show that just came to a close yesterday, Moon Knight. It stars Oscar Isaac, Ethan Hawke, Calamawy, F. Murray Abraham, and it is showrun by Jeremy Slater, with the director of the show being Mohammed Diab. And with that said, let's get started. Moon Knight follows Stephen Grant, a mild-mannered gift shop employee who experiences blackouts and mysterious circumstances of being thrust into weird situations with no knowledge of anything that's happening, and he gets thrust into this adventure where he realizes that he shares a body with a mercenary known as Marc Spector. I've been looking forward to Moon Knight for a while. It's one of my most anticipated MCU Disney Plus show of the bunch. I think I really like what I was seeing in the trailer, and I like the cast that's involved, and I think for the most part, I really enjoyed the show. It is probably one of the best MCU Disney Plus shows we've had, maybe the best, but I really enjoyed it. I think the cast is great, especially Oscar Isaac. I loved him in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and I even enjoyed him in stuff like Dune Part 1. So I'm really happy to see that his career has taken off since then, and I'm really excited to see what more he does next with his career, and especially as this character. And I really liked his dynamic with Calamawy as Layla, who plays the wife of Marc Spector, but not the wife of Stephen Grant. So I think there's a really nice dynamic with some fun moments that they both have with one another as they go on this adventure to stop Arthur Harrow from releasing Amit from causing chaos on the world. And Ethan Harrow is a welcome addition to the MCU. I think acting-wise, he's really great as this character. And he has this presence where I really like seeing him on screen. And he's just a really great actor. And I really enjoyed F. Murray Abraham as Khonshu, this moon god that gives Mark and Steven their abilities. I think he was great. And there's some good CGI on him, and especially just the moments that Khonshu has with our characters. So the cast here is great. And I really enjoyed how the show was able to tell Stephen Grant in this circumstance where he realizes, like, oh, he has another personality within his head. Nothing's right with him recently, especially as he's experiencing blackouts. And he's being just thrust, and he wakes up in all these different places, and he has no clue what is going on. And I love how the show plays off of that at first with the mysterious what's happening with Stephen. Is something wrong with him? And I really like how they did that here. And I really enjoyed how Oscar Isaac portrays dissociative identity disorder with Stephen Grant and Marc Spector, with how Marc Spector is more like aggressive than Stephen is. Stephen is very mild-mannered, and I liked how Stephen is just thrust into all this. He's just living his life. And then all of this is happening to him, and he has no idea what's happening. He just wakes up with, like, oh, he has a gun on his hand and he's driving a truck. Or he wakes up with a broken jaw on the grass, and he has no idea where he is and why all this is happening to him. And I really liked Marc Spector's more just has an idea on what's happening here, and I really liked the dynamic they had. And especially when you get to the back half of the show, around episode 3 and such, I really loved the bond both of them developed with one another, especially in episode 5, which is my favorite episode of the show. I love seeing these two at odds at first, with Mark's like, I know we have to do, you got to give me control of the body. And Steven is just like, no, don't want to do this. I don't know what's happening to me. And then as the show progressed, you see how they start to really care for one another, especially in the finale. There are some really great moments between the two of them. And I think Oscar Isaac portrayed it wonderfully. And there are some phenomenal acting moments from him, especially in episode 5, that I think it's just done so well. It is a very unique project in the MCU, and it has those National Treasure, Raiders of the Lost Ark type vibe where Marc Spector and Stephen Grant are both on this adventure to stop Arthur Harrow from finding Amit in Egypt, because Amit will release chaos upon the world. And I really like that. It's a really cool thing to see in this franchise, and I think they did it well. And another thing I love is, even though it's an MCU project, it's so standalone. They barely connect anything from the MCU, and I think it's nice, especially because this is the very first MCU Disney Plus show to introduce us to a new character. We already knew who Scarlet Witch and Vision were in WandaVision. We already knew Sam and Bucky and before Falcon the Winter Soldier and Loki, Hawkeye, and even What If, even if it's just different versions of those characters. But this is the first MCU Disney Plus show to give us a brand new character and a new side to the MCU. So I really liked that the show was able to just disconnect from all that and focus on its own story. And I think that worked really well here. The pacing of the show is very well done, especially at 6 episodes. I think it's one of the better paced shows from Marvel Disney Plus. Loki, I think, is the best one when it comes to pacing. And I think I really liked how they did episode 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. All that stuff is well paced. And I think it never felt like we had an unnecessary subplot or something that just doesn't add anything to the show, or we're using this time to set up like the future of the character. I like that they focused on this individual story and they focused on all the things it needs to without trying to be overstuffed. The action sequences here, they're cool. I think I really liked the action sequences in episodes 3, especially episode 6. And I think it's just, there's some really good stuff here, especially from how they're shot, and especially with Oscar Isaac in the mix with, and I think what makes it funnier is how you'll see Oscar Isaac shift from Marc Spector, who is more skilled at being a fighter because he's a mercenary, to being Stephen Grant, who's just a very not that kind of person. And I think it's really nice to see Oscar shift from one personality to another in these moments, especially in episode 3, which I actually find kind of funny how Mark was in action, and then Steven takes over the body, and everything looks like it's going to be fine. He tries to make everybody calm down, then nope, it goes sideways very quickly, and then Mark gets the body back again. That's a pretty funny moment too, I will admit.
Give me the body, Mark! Sorry. You all right? That's it.
All right, time out. That's it, time out. Guys, let's all calm down, yeah? We're all worked up. Let's all just, like, chill the F out and talk for a second. Take the body. Take the body, Mark.
I love how the show starts in episode 1, where you just follow Steven, who is just living his life, and you just see all these blackouts are happening. He has no idea what's happening to him. It has a very interesting pilot, and I think the best pilot out of all of our MCU Disney Plus shows, because new character, we're just knowing him for the very first time, and a lot of the blackouts that happen there I think is really interesting, because it makes me wonder, like, what's happening to him? How did we get here? And I really liked how it ends, where he lets Mark take over the body to stop the Jackal. And it was just a really cool way to end the episode. And it's a very mysterious episode, and I like that. You don't get the answers right away, which I love. I love when shows don't give me all the big stuff right from the get-go, but rather you start at first, you're curious as to all this, and then as you go, it starts to make more sense. And I like how it started. I think the first 2 episodes being more about Steven, just reacting to all these things that's happening to him, I think are great. Really enjoyed those first 2 episodes especially. And how Arthur Harrow now has his sights on him, and so is Khonshu, and how it's like, you got to stop Harrow, you got to stop Amit from being free. And he's just like, I don't want a part of this, I just want to live my life. And then Mark is over there like, give me the body. You got to trust me on this one, because this is not something you could just go around and just forget about or screw up. So I really enjoy that. Episode 3 is when the action adventure really starts to take form, because now Marc Spector has control for the most part. And we see how on this adventure to Egypt, he's going around, he's fighting people, maybe getting some people killed who are on the bad guy's side. And it is a dark show. It's not as gruesome as I might have expected it to be, but it's still a lot more gruesome than, like, say, most MCU projects. And there are some episodes where like there are some pretty violent moments at points, even though at times they don't lean into it as much. So one of the more darker MCU projects in terms of violence, it's not as violent as I thought it was going to be, especially with what I know of the character and all that. But I do think it does add to the distinctness of this project amongst everything else in the series. There's some good cinematography to be found. I think episode 3, when they're in Egypt, I think that looks really great. And especially in the ending where Steven and Khonshu with the moon, they control the sky and they start to move all the way back to find that one night where the stars were like this, so that Layla and them can go on continue this adventure to find Amit and Amit's tomb. And so I really like that. There's some really good shots here and cinematography work to be found on this show. And especially in the episode 5, lots of great stuff here, especially in the end where you see Mark in the ancestral plane and you see the afterlife in a way and all that stuff. There's some great cinematography to be found, and I really like how the show handles dissociative identity disorder for Oscar Isaac's performance, especially in a heartbreaking scene where Mark's mom has passed away, but you see him leave because he couldn't be bothered to attend her funeral. And so you see him just break down, and that was such an emotional scene to watch, just knowing how all this trauma that his mom has put him through and how it affected him, and how you see that Steven isn't the main personality of this body, but rather he's created to be the fall guy and to be the strong character of the bunch, especially with Steven. And so I think I really enjoyed that episode and how we got to see the origin story, which I think was really cool here. I love the costumes here. Moon Knight's suit for Marc Spector is awesome. It looks so different compared to everything else in the MCU. And Mr. Knight looks awesome. And I actually do like the idea that they make Steven Mr. Knight specifically for this show. On the negative side, I think if there's one thing this show still has my opinion solidified on, it's that I need Disney Plus and Marvel to stop making their shows be 6 episodes. Loki did it the best. Hawkeye had the most issues with those 6 episodes, because while I still enjoyed Hawkeye a lot, it felt really rushed to me, especially in the back half of the show and its finale. And I think Moon Knight, it had a better time with 6 episodes than Hawkeye, but this final episode felt like 2 episodes mashed into one, and it felt like some moments felt very rushed or convenient. It was like, it's the final episode, we got to get through all this big stuff so that we can get to our climax, and it felt like some moments needed more time to be had, and it felt like some moments shouldn't have been rushed the way they did, especially in episode 6 where Mark decides to leave the ancestral plane to find Steven, and then when he goes back to the afterlife where they were before, where Steven turns the stone, where they thought he died, it's like he finds him like immediately, and it felt like that felt rushed because it felt like they needed to get this over with quickly, and so many things felt very convenient. And there are things about the finale that I think are really cool, like seeing Layla have superpowers. I mean, that was really cool. And I think the characters and actors were really great in the finale. And I think how it wraps up everything, where they stop Harrow and Mark and Steven are free from Khonshu, as though we thought, and how Amit is defeated in the end. I think the way they wrap up things is nice, but I think the way it gets there, I think could have been better. And some CGI across the show can be a little spotty, especially in episode 6, where even though it's a cool moment where Mark and Steven, they get revived, they come back to life, and the Moon Knight suit, when it goes on them, it doesn't look like practical. It doesn't look very real. It looked like this is a digital render of that character. And especially earlier on in the show, some visual effects look good, but sometimes they can be a little noticeable. You can tell that maybe isn't as finished yet. And I think that is not a big issue, but it's like one of those minor issues I have found as I viewed the show. And the biggest problem I've had with the show, other than just the fact that I feel like this show needed an extra episode or two, is that the way Moon Knight has been able to stop Harrow and this whole conflict between the two of them was very underwhelming to me, because I love both Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke, and just the scenario Moon Knight was in, where it's like Harrow has him down the ground, he has his weapon on top of his chest, and it looked like taking power and all that stuff, continuing his and Amit's goal to like just cause chaos. I really was hoping that we were going to get a really awesome resolution to that, but it felt so anticlimactic that all of a sudden you see Mark down on the ground and he gets a blackout, and all of a sudden Harrow's defeated. All of Harrow's men around him are dead. And it was like you didn't get to see what happened. And I know the show has also teased this third personality who is revealed to be Jake Lockley in the mid-credit scene. But that could have been the perfect way to reveal Jake Lockley, because the show, since episode 3, has teased to us that there is another personality inside of the body. And so I was hoping that would have been a cool way to reveal to us that here's Jake Lockley, here's our third personality who's a lot more aggressive than Marc Spector is. And so it felt like we had a big missed opportunity with having a cool action sequence where we see Jake Lockley unleash chaos upon Harrow and his men. And I think the fact that we just had a simple blackout at that moment, and then all of a sudden Harrow's unconscious, defeated, and all that stuff, that felt very underwhelming to me, because you never got to get, I never felt much payoff from that moment, because it was like, I liked Harrow's, Ethan Hawke's performance as the character, and I was interested in seeing how they were going to wrap things up, because I liked both characters and what was happening to them, but I did not like the way it was resolved. It felt very anticlimactic to me, and it felt very much like a cop-out, and it felt like just a very cheap way for them to just get them out of the situation. And it really bums me out, because that could have been an epic action sequence to stop the villain, and it could have been an epic moment to finally reveal the third personality that the show's been teasing. But we never get it. Instead, it was just a simple blackout, and then boom, the villain's defeated, the hero emerged victorious in a sense. Then they continue to stop Amit, and I was like, I wish we got to see what happened in that blackout, because the blackouts worked really well at first, but then in the finale it was like, oh, we now have another blackout again, because by this point Mark and Steven are officially like working together. But yeah, just the way they resolved the conflict between Mark, Steven versus Harrow and them felt very underwhelming to me. The CGI at times can be very iffy at points, and I still think the show could have maybe just had just an episode or two. Again, it's still done far better than how Hawkeye had 6 episodes, but I feel like I need Marvel and Disney Plus to stop mandating their shows to be 6 episodes. I feel like just an extra episode or 2 would have been great. Just make the Moon Knight finales be 2 separate episodes, and I think that probably would have worked out fine with the story. But the finale, again, it's a good episode. I liked a lot of moments in the finale, but the way it resolved the conflict, I think, felt very much like something that just didn't amaze me in a sense. But I did like how, in the end, the show has a conclusive ending where Mark and Steven and Layla, they stopped Harrow. All that's done for. They ask for Khonshu to free them, and so he does. And then they wake up in their apartment, and it looks like, they're just back to normal living in a sense. So it had a nice ending with those characters, and I think it had a mid-credit scene where you see Harrow. He's in a psychiatric hospital, and then he gets escorted by an unknown man who you don't see his face, and he goes into a limo, and you see Khonshu dressed up, and you see him talking to him about how, Marc Spector does not realize how more messed up he is in his head, and that there's a lot more to him than we and even himself thinks he is. And then he reveals to us the third personality, Jake Lockley, and he executes Arthur Harrow in the limo, and they drive away. Now, Oscar Isaac did not sign a contract to do another season, so I'm curious as to when we'll see him next. I hope we get a season 2 for this show, and if he does show up in the movies, I think that would be awesome, because I do not think this is the last and only time we'll ever see Oscar Isaac in the MCU. So hopefully we get a season 2 announcement soon, because overall I loved Moon Knight. It is a very great show, very unique It's a super new addition to the MCU with a new distinct identity of its own as an action adventure kind of show, while also dealing with dissociative identity disorder. I think the cast is great. I loved the story, and I love how mysterious it was at the start. And I think I liked the episodes a lot for the most part. I just think the finale just could have done some things differently, and it could have just benefited from maybe another episode or two. But in the end, I dug Moon Knight. It is one of the best MCU Disney Plus shows we have had thus far. So in the end, I'm going to give Moon Knight an A. And I highly recommend you go check this out on Disney Plus. I don't know if I like it more than Loki, but I can't say Moon Knight is on par with Loki, because I really enjoyed both shows, especially Moon Knight. I really enjoyed it a lot. I really hope we get to see Oscar Isaac return as Moon Knight in the future, because I really hope they do more with him, especially after how season 1 ended, especially with the reveal of Jake Lockley. So I really hope they give the show a season 2, because I really want to see what they do next with the character. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Moon Knight season 1. Let me know down below in the comment section. What did you think of the season? I'd love to hear it down below in the comments, because I really enjoyed it, and I'd love to see how you feel about the show as a whole. And don't forget, I have a review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness coming out soon. I'm seeing the movie tonight, and I am so excited to watch it. So hopefully you guys will stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So don't forget to do that while you're at it. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.